Hello everybody, welcome back to part 3 of my Weavealong. So as you can see here, my warp has progressed to be an egg. I giggled to myself so much while making this. I like having an egg, so I'm going to put a shell on my egg today using a looping technique. And then I'm also going to show you guys how to put some roving into your warp. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing that I want to share with you guys is something new that I've learned. So I've got a bit of thread here. I'm going to, by the way, I think this is just a bit of cotton, mercerized cotton. So I just loop it around my fingers quite a few times, trying to keep the tension even between them. Oh, let me just move that so it doesn't scratch on that. And then once I've reached a point where I feel I've got enough yarn, I twist it around a few times. So now you can either use a needle to push this length of yarn through here to secure it, or you can leave it just like that if it's just going to be a short-term solution. But what you have now here is effectively a center pull ball that is going to act like a little bit of a shuttle. So I'll show you guys now. I realize I don't have a scissor. I'll be right back. Here we go. We have a handy dandy scissor. So I'm just going to cut it off quite close there. Put this aside. And then what I'm going to be doing now, the other thing that I've learned as well, is to have your threads at the front when you're working with a circular hoop is quite annoying, because as you're working around, you have to keep moving your threads front and back, and so what I've done is I've pulled them all to the back. With my frame looms that I've been working with this far, you usually work from the bottom upwards. So then having those yarns hanging towards the front is really not a problem, because gravity will pull them down and they're not going to get into your way. So just a little bit of a tip for a circular hoop going forward. Right, now for my circular, well, encircling technique, there's a name for it, but I forget what the name is. I'll go look it up and just post it in the comments below. What you do is you come up from the back so that your end sits at the back, and then instead of going up and down over your threads, you go down and then up again where you came up. Right, so now I've made this little loop. So I can choose now to either have it like I have here, where the tail end is towards the inside, or the other way around, where the tail end, well, this tail end is towards the outside, or the other way around, where the tail end is towards the outside. So I'm going to actually switch these around, because I want to show you guys, if you come right round, you can make a knitting kind of looking hoop. So if my tail is now towards the outside, inside, one day I'll say it right, I promise. So now I just push that loop up towards the top, and then I go down again and up again on this side, so that there's a circling around the next loop, and so I go right around. Oh, I did the same spoke there. So you can just go back, go to the next spoke. So as you make them, just make sure that you pull them tight and move them towards the spot where they're going to be sitting, because if you leave them up here and you push them back, you're going to have a lot of loose yarn bothering you up here. if your little bundle comes a little bit untied like mine did now, you can just retie it again. Just make sure to unravel it, and then putting that end that's already on your warp towards the inside. So don't roll it from where the end is. And this around again. There we go, nice and neat, and inside center pull again. Alrighty, so we are now where we stopped previously with our beginning. So then what we're going to do now is invert the way that our loops is. So where it was that we go over the next spoke back under towards the back of the loop, so it was like that. What we're doing now is still over the next spoke, but instead of bringing your yarn up at the back, bring it back up towards the front, so that you have a loop that is directing towards the inside. So what that would do, I just quickly do a few to show you guys. Let me just do a few more. Ah, that one's the wrong side. Okay, so now if you look at the way that these loops are sitting, they look a little bit like a knit stitch, don't they? So I'm going to be doing these loops off camera quickly, just so that it's a bit easier, closer to my body, and I'll come back to show you guys what it looks like. Alrighty, so here we have my loops. I think it's called rail loops. My brain is telling me now it's rail loops. So because we changed the direction, it looks like a single knit stitch column, or like a surface crochet stitch, and I really like this effect for bringing in some visual interest in between your weaving. So now the next thing that I want to do is incorporate a little bit of roving. So what roving is it is unspun merino fibers or alpaca fibers, or whatever the source is of your roving, and it's usually arranged in a braid or in a roving sliver like this. So in this sliver, all of the fibers is sitting in the same direction, and if I were to start pulling from the one end, you will see that they would come apart quite easily. But if I pull from too close together, they won't come apart because the fibers are too short. So that is what is called, well, they're too long from where I'm touching, which is too short. So that is what is called staple length. So you can either pull on this end to make it a little bit short, a little bit thinner, and keep pulling down the end. But what I like to do is take a shortcut, which is to just split it anywhere you like in terms of how much thickness you want. So I want about that thickness, and then just pulling it lightly apart all the way down the length of your piece of roving. So now I have this nice thinner little piece, and what I'm going to do now is do that same sort of looping technique, but I'm going to start from this side and then go the other direction. Now because it's roving, I recommend to not use too long pieces, because you're going to be pulling it through a lot of times, and what tends to happen if there's too much friction on your roving is that it felts, and then it doesn't have this nice fluffy look to it. So I've got that one loop now, so I'm going to do the next one, pull it through and push it up. So my end point here is a little bit thin, so that's why my loops here is quite small. they're going to get bigger the more I work down this length of roving. Be very careful to not let your roving pull apart like that, and try and keep it together as much as possible, because the more you pull it apart or put strain on it, the more, let me just take that away, the more it's going to look messy at the end of the day. So try and keep it as together as possible. But of course, also because it's loose fibers in the roving, it's sometimes not a good idea. So something else to consider as well is that because the spokes here at the inside is still quite close together, what I'm seeing now is that that closeness is pushing my roving down. So what I'm going to do now is, instead of wrapping this next spoke, I'm going to skip it and wrap the next spoke, so that I can push my roving all the way close to my egg, rather than having it wanting to not go as close because of how tight the spokes are. And then if I look at that one, there's a bit of space there. Oh no, I'm not even lying. You see how tight that one is to the next spoke? I don't even see where the next one was. So I'm going to again skip a spoke and then wrap the next spoke. You can try to have your loops not go as tight, so that there's a little bit of air and space in them. It's really all up to you in terms of what you want your finished look to look like. If you like the fluffiness, then by all means keep the fluffiness. Okay, so now I get to this little thin point again. So I'm going to start wrapping every spoke again instead of skipping a spoke, just because my loops are going to become thinner and tighter now. There we go. I'm just going to put that little bit of end towards the back. So what I tend to find with roving is that they want a little bit of space around them, and they also want to be locked in effectively. So with your next rows that you're going to be working around, see what it looks like when you press quite close against your roving. You'll see that there is different effects, and you'll be able to decide what you actually like the look of. But yeah, there's a little bit of some standing out visual interest on my egg. I'm really enjoying how this is working up. So yeah, I think the next part is going to be either finishing or maybe something else, if I can find something else to show you guys. But with weaving, the bulk of the techniques, oh yes, I can actually do next part. Oh, but it is also part of finishing. It's okay. I know I'm all over the place here. So yeah, I think the next part I'm going to do the finishing, which will also show you guys how to do some fringes, if you guys would like to do that. And yeah, cool. Thank you for watching. If you would like to see more of this content, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you guys on the flip side. Bye.